Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Dr. Picard K. Lumumba, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com. Back once again with a great show. I believe we have a great show in conjunction, of course, with Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire and the home of African-centered news and information. And we're back to discuss what does the fall of Dr. Umar Johnson mean for Pan-Africanism. If you're watching, family, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Make sure you hit that notification bell as well. You're watching, of course, Lumumba Speaks, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we can gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, in conjunction, of course, with Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire and the home of African-centered news and information. And so, family, hi, Lumumba, hope you're good. It was my birthday yesterday. I'm 43 now. Shout out to Mr. K. All right, absolutely. Shout out to Mr. K, turning 43. In fact, I appreciate you saying that. As we all know, I would be remiss in my duty as a Pan-Africanist if I did not start the show by saying Happy Garvey Day to everyone. If you aren't aware, today is Marcus Garvey's birthday. We're talking about the Right and Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey Jr., born August 17th, 1887 in St. Ann's Bay, Jamaica. I've had the pleasure, the privilege, and the luxury of traveling to St. Ann's Bay, Jamaica. And so definitely want to give thanks to Marcus Garvey. He is seen as one of the greatest Pan-Africanists of our time. And of course, the link between classical and modern Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism. So definitely want to give a shout out and give love to, of course, the Right and Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. And of course, we want to give a happy Earth Day, belated happy birthday to Kevin, aka Mr. K, who's 43 years old now. Hope you turned up in a healthy manner yesterday, as the young folks say, and celebrated, of course, your, as many people argue, solar return. Give thanks, brother. Give thanks. Black August, absolutely, 100%. So we know you're truly revolutionary. But with that said, family, we're here to discuss what does the fall of Dr. Umar Johnson mean for Pan-Africanism. As many of you may be aware, the jig is up for Dr. Umar Johnson. We know that many people have been saying for years, and you could darn near say a decade, that there would never be a school. Right? Many people argue that there would never be a school. There are some who have argued that he's raised nearly $2 million. There isn't a school to show for it. If you haven't been following the news regarding Umar Johnson, it's been stated that the city of Wilmington, Delaware, is going to actually auction the buildings off due to back taxes or some type of fee in the range of $4,000 to $40,000 that he did not pay. And of course, we know he's been in the news for a number of issues, right, in which some would argue, has embarrassed himself, right? We had the latest situation with the sister where he said she was simply a throat goat and greasing his shango, right? I think anyone who is serious about Black empowerment understands that there's a particular way in which you communicate, in the way you carry yourself when you are a public figure and in the public light. I would argue that he hasn't done that in a manner that's becoming since the 2010s, right? When it came out with the conscious stripper situation, that he called the woman a maggot, right? And I think anyone who, once again, is promoting this concept, an idea of, Black queens forever, snow buddies never, promoting this concept of Black love and Black women are queens, Black men are kings. That's not the type of language you use in a public forum, right? So I think there are a number of issues, professional and private, that have come to light. And as a result, we find ourselves in a situation where, right, this may be presumably the end of Umar Johnson. We know before there was a situation in which many argued that was the case, and he stated he was going to move to Africa. We know that's not the case. But there's a couple of things I think I really want to, lean into, right? And one is in the Black community, and this isn't something that is germane to simply Black consciousness or the concept of Black radicalism or Black activism, right? But this is something that we find in the Black community where individuals will promote a particular idea, whether it be ideological, yes, and Dr. Umar Johnson has been called the Prince of Panhandling, donations. But we find this in the Black community. If one is promoting an ideology, if one is promoting an idea, even a religion, right? We oftentimes find individuals are using these concepts and ideas to really sustain themselves, right? I can recall vividly, family in my hometown, Dayton, Ohio. Shout out to the Gym City 937. They just had the African American Culture Festival yesterday, and it's going on all weekend, actually. One of the things that we found that took place was this is a brother who was incarcerated, got out, and all of a sudden he says, I'm a preacher. Give thanks to God, right? But it's a way to make a living. I would argue that Umar Johnson was never a serious Pan-Africanist, but because he knew more than most, to a lay person that comes off as this is someone who's educated and serious. Dr. Hakiar Matabuti, I had the pleasure of meeting him. He's one of the individuals, the brother who founded, of course, Third World Press. He said it to me before you go off what anyone says, first look at what they do. And I think his behavior shows that he's not a serious individual, right? Like I said, the numerous public embarrassments that have taken place, I think speaks to that. We don't have to, do a deep dive. We know the history, but I think that's something to consider. We find this with a number of individuals that, they kind of talk a good game. They know more than most. If that's Tariq Nasheed, if that's 21 Keys, if that's Umar Johnson, if that's the Pimp Preachers, or Reverend Chickenhead, Chicken Wing, they're loquacious, they're articulate, they're well-spoken, they're charismatic. But at the end of the day, the goal is get some money out of you, right? So I think that's something to consider. But one of the critiques and criticisms I found when people were talking about the fall of Umar Johnson was, well, this is the representative of Pan-Africanism. And that Pan-Africanism really doesn't have anything to offer. And I would disagree. I think the benefit of Umar Johnson having this fall, as many would say, some will argue that he's never actually risen, right, to have a fall, is that it could allow people to focus on people who are doing the real work, right? We talk about Sister Farida from of course, Togo, who's here in the States right now doing some work in Boston. Brother Dwayne Omawale, who comes on the show. I would say Kevin, aka Mr. K, right? We're talking about Brother Raheem Shabazz, right? Individuals who are actually doing the work, right? If it be educating, if it's addressing the material conditions of our people, which is something that is serious. And then the most difficult thing to do is, of course, to build institutions, right? Build and sustain institutions that would serve the needs of our people, right? That is the major issue. That's the call of arms that anyone who's actually has an interest in bettering the Black community, right, should be engaging in. Let's see here, you said, I've always saw Umar Johnson as a Creflo Dollar Pan-Africanism, never the Prince of Pan-Africanism. Overstood, absolutely. Overstood. So I think this is something, of course, to consider, that if you're serious about helping Black people, doesn't matter if you're FBA, ADOS, if you're a Black conservative, if you are Pan-Africanist, you could be anything you want to be, right? Nuwabi and whatever. It's about building institutions, creating initiatives and programs that tangibly, not ideally, but tangibly serve the needs of our people. I would argue politically, socially, and of course, economically. And economically, that would connect with materially. Those are the things that should be done if you're serious about helping Black people, right? Restore ourselves to our traditional greatness. I would argue oftentimes that doesn't take place. Oftentimes, many individuals are simply talking heads who have no real solutions to problems, or oftentimes the solution is what? Purchase a product from me. So I'll give you all an example, family. And Mr. K, I'm still working to do the reaction video to the brother that you sent me, the email that you sent me. So when I did my reaction video to 21 Keys, as you know, anytime I do a reaction video, I reach out to the actual individual, say, hey, you come on, we can have a conversation, and you can, of course, speak your piece. So I reached out to 21 Keys, spoke with his manager about having him come on, do the interview. He said he's very busy right now because they're prepping for the Save Yourself tour. But they said, listen, he could probably come in and speak on your platform for about 30 minutes if you purchase 6 tickets to his tour. So, I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, it's a hustle. They're trying to hustle me, and the goal is to make money, right? And if you don't believe me, I'm actually bring up the email because, I have to have receipts, as they say. When you make a claim, you need to be able to substantiate it. That's what I believe in. And give me 1 second, family. Okay. No, that's not it. Okay, I'm gonna have to find this because if not, I will not be able to substantiate my claim. So yeah, and then, yes, I saw that, Mr. Sandman. People were, of course, critiquing the fact that he's going to South Africa preaching revolution. Yes. So and then here's the thing: it's easy to be a revolutionary when a revolution isn't in your community. That's just a reality. That's part of what takes place and why these things happen. But let's see here if I can find this email that they sent me, basically requesting that I okay, here we go. I think I found it. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I can share my screen now. Thank you, family, for bearing with me while I pull this up. So let's see here. Bam. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see that. It may be too far away. There we go. But as you can see here, so I said, good afternoon. This is his manager. I said, I'm sending this email to follow up my request to interview 19 Keys on my platform, Lumina Speaks to Be Equal Network. Hope to hear from you soon. His response was, thanks for the follow-up. I think the best course of action would be for you to be part of our promo. Currently, where 19 Keys will go, well, 19 Keys, that's sorry, not 21 Keys, will go on any virtual podcast for those that purchase 6 tickets for 30 minutes, 10 tickets for 45 minutes plus for our Save Yourself tour. This will allow us to book something virtually before the 3rd of September. Otherwise, it would be difficult to book given our schedule. If interested, just email receipt for purchase, right? And this is something that he was talking about on Instagram, saying, hey, I can help you build your platform. I will come on the platform. And of course, you can interview me. This allows him to gain more exposure. But to do that, you have to pay. You have to purchase tickets to his tour. So the whole thing is just about making money out of people, not actually helping someone. So, but as you know, family, on my platform, we have interviewed a number of scholars, intellects, doctors, etc., right? Professionals. They don't charge me anything, right? So once again, at the end of the day, for most of these people, this is about one thing: making money, not helping Black people. It's about making money. I'm not opposed to making money, right? Everyone has to have a day job. Everyone needs to be able to make a living. We live in a material world, right? The issue, however, is these are individuals who are cosplaying, in my personal opinion, humble opinion, cosplaying Black activism, right? And really turning it into a business in which they're able to make money off of Black people who are seeking real solutions to what our social, political, and economic quagmire. So something to, once again, consider, family. So something to consider, right? So once again, family, I'm going to put the link in the chat. The link is in the description. Tap in, be part of the conversation. We're discussing what does the fall of Umar Johnson mean for Pan-Africanism. I think it's a positive. We can get back to focusing on real people who are doing real work to benefit the Black community. And then, of course, folks, shift away from this concept of this leadership model that's rooted around charismatic personalities to what consensus building, democratic, grassroots work that, of course, builds institutions, programs, and initiatives to what tangibly benefit the lives of African people, irrespective of where we are in the world. So once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. But also, family, I think what's most important here is, as I said before, I wanted to make sure that I provided receipts, right? That I didn't make a claim and I was unable to substantiate it. And as you all were able to see, their goal is simply to make money, right? Simply to make money, right? I don't think, and I've heard him speak on a number of platforms, even, of course, on Instagram. He hasn't said anything that I think is worth listening to, but that's my personal opinion. But I had a conversation with a brother last night who I actually went to undergrad with. He says, yeah, I'm familiar with him, familiar with some of his talking points, and he's all over the place. The guy's talking about aliens and spaceships all over the place. But to the untutored mind, this individual may appear as if they have some type of insight or intellect or knowledge that most people do not have. And the reality is this is an individual who is simply bloviating and engaging in histrionics, right? So once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in and be part of the conversation, right? Tap in, be part of the conversation. We'd love to hear from you all. What does the fall of Dr. Umar Johnson mean for Pan-Africanism, right? I would argue that he was a pseudo-Pan-Africanist, someone who promoted Pan-Africanism, used Pan-Africanism to promote his personal brand, which was, of course, to ideologically argue that he was the greatest Pan-Africanist since what Marcus Messiah Garvey. Of course, this is something that he has stated. He stated that he was Marcus Garvey incarnated. He's Papa, Prince of Pan-Africanism, etc. Many have argued that he's the Prince of Panhandling. But what we do know is that none of the initiatives that he stated he was going to bring to fruition have come to fruition, right? He said he was going to create the documentary. It didn't happen. He stated that he was going to create a Pan-African credit union. Didn't happen, right? The school, which is the biggest blunder, hasn't happened, right? So none of the initiatives that he's actually stated that he was going to create actually came to fruition. I prefer to refer to Umar as a pimp Africanist. Very good. I can understand that. And we find this throughout the Black community, where oftentimes individuals will use a particular idea or theological frame of reference and then use that as a way to make money, right? Whether that be Black activism, whether that be, of course, the church or even Islam, for example. We see this in the Nation of Islam, but oftentimes the goal is to make money. And oftentimes people are engaging in activism is really a form of survivalism, right? Where the real goal, the focus is using this platform, using this idea as a way to financially support myself, right? So I think that's something to consider. I mean, Umar's failed school opening doesn't take away from the message that the Black community needs. Yeah, well, Sean, I want you to tap in because we have to have more than a message, right? People can't live off of rhetoric, right? We have to have institutions that serve the needs of our people. If you don't have an institution, at the very least, you can have a program or initiative to help people. A great example would be New Era Dayton, right, which is a part of New Era, which is a Pan-Africanist organization. They have, of course, that started in Detroit. They have branches throughout the United States, Canada, and even on the continent now. New Era Dayton doesn't have an institution, but they do have an initiative and program. And one initiative they have is where they help people purchase cars for individuals who need a vehicle, right? So an actual initiative that tangibly helps people socially, politically, economically, or materially, right? That's what we need, not a rhetoric in which you simply are manipulating people and having them give you money to help you, of course, fund your lifestyle. Right. And I don't think that that's a benefit at all. It has to go far beyond rhetoric. Right. I recall, I believe this was in 1990, 1991. Nelson Mandela came to the United States and he was being interviewed. I don't know if it was ABC, CBS, but it was one of the major news networks. And they asked Mandela, you have aligned yourself with a number of individuals who have a horrid record when it comes to human rights. But you state that your fight against apartheid in South Africa is a human rights struggle. They mentioned Muammar Gaddafi. They mentioned Fidel Castro, maybe another individual as well. And Nelson Mandela stated that our struggle, our allies help us in ways that go far beyond rhetoric. They said they provide food, clothing, supplies, weapons, infrastructure to help us in our fight against apartheid. So I would argue that what tends to happen is these are individuals who they're like Jim Lampley and Larry Merchant. They just talk a good fight, right? They just talk a good fight. But in terms of actually doing the work to help give our people a competitive advantage in civil society, that typically doesn't take place. So once again, family, link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in and be part of the conversation. You're watching, of course, LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe you can gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black in conjunction with Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, in the home of African-centered news and information. Tap in. We're discussing what does the fall of Dr. Umar Johnson mean for Pan-Africanism. I believe that this is a benefit to Pan-Africanism. This can be a boon for Pan-Africanism, to where the focus will be on focus is on people who are actually doing the work rather than simply charismatic personalities that seek to use Pan-Africanism for their personal gain. So something to consider, family. Hope to hear from you all. Once again, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. Tap in, be part of the conversation. All right. LMA, I see you coming in. Love to hear from you. My brother that dribbles down in VA. Absolutely. What's the word, brother?
What's good, Doc? Can you hear me okay?
I hear you just fine.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I knew this day was eventually going to come where Dr. Umar, Prince of Pan-Africanism, is going to get his comeuppance. I think he's hustled himself into a corner he can't get himself out of.
Mm-hmm.
And to your question, unfortunately, I think he's going to do more damage than he's going to do good. But I feel that there are a lot more prominent Pan-African voices that are out there that can take up the mantle in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yourself being one. I don't know how you feel about shouting out other YouTube channels, but there's one guy, Nakari Desalegn. I think
Yeah,
he's out of
I'm all for shouting out other YouTube channels.
yeah. So I think he's been putting in a lot of work. I do think that, like I said, the damage that he did was basically his timing because we've never seen this type of I've never seen this type of onslaught of Afrocentric onslaught from black people in my lifetime. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm.
this was a complete shock to me. Growing up, Black America was always Afrocentric to me. You know what I'm saying? There may have been a couple people here and there who may not have they may have been apathetic towards Africa, but there was no hostility towards Africa. You know what I'm saying? And
At least
so
publicly
public,
promoting
right,
hostility. Right.
right. And I think we all understood that we came from Africa. Even if we, like I said, even if we were apathetic, we all knew we came from Africa. There wasn't this whole, oh no, I'm Choctaw, I'm Sioux, I'm whatever. Like you got like one drop of Native American blood in you, and you're just gonna throw away the whole 90% of your African heritage. But so I think that the timing is makes it worse because now you're adding more ammo to the detractors of Pan Africanism. And I
I don't think he cares.
that's the one thing that bothers me because I want to know if he cares or not. Because at some
Well, I mean,
point,
and
I
real
mean,
quick,
go ahead,
I think
go ahead.
what's most important to him is the Ifantunde Queendom.
Oh, the self-aggrandizement, the pedestal that he put himself up on.
Absolutely, right? And he's
Yeah.
looking for another queen who's willing to grease the Shango.
But the thing
Donation.
is, but
Donation.
what's crazy? But what's
Donation.
crazy with his? I mean, and that kind of, I don't know. If he couldn't get it done with all the donations, all the publicity he had, he couldn't get it done. I mean, maybe he just wasn't the dude to do it, But
Yeah, but this also speaks to, and a great comment, Mr. K. But this also speaks to you can't do anything alone. You have to have a competent
yeah,
team of professionals
exactly,
around you to bring
exactly.
any type of program, initiative, or institution to fruition.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the reality. You can't do anything by yourself. I'm a director of a Black Culture Center, right? Our ideological frame of reference is Pan-Africanism, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm not here by myself. I have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people who work underneath me.
Yeah.
Right. And I wouldn't say work underneath me. They simply report
So,
to me.
yeah, work along. Yeah,
But
you work
you
along with
can't do things by yourself. And that's what it appears that he's trying to do everything by himself. I would argue one could infer that one of the reasons that's taking place is because what he's doing isn't legitimate.
Yeah. Yeah. In the beginning, I kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt that maybe his ego was just too big, and he saw an issue, and we always been saying for years, like, oh, we need a new school, we need our own school, we need our own school, and so he took it up. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
that my whole thing was maybe he just bit off more than he can chew, right? Because a lot of people will say, oh, all we have to do is this. I was taught a long time ago. If you hear someone say, all you have to do is just, you know what I'm saying? Just X them out because they don't know what they're talking about. There is no such thing as all you have to do is just. Um,
Right.
so maybe he just didn't understand like the scope of the size of opening up a new school, and maybe he just kind of jumped ahead first because even in the beginning, he was chastising. There was another brother named he goes by the name Q Butter, and he was doing like an after school program, right? And so I want to say that there was some like back and forth between them saying that Umar was kind of putting down the idea of an after school, basically saying it wasn't big enough. Well, the problem is you got to start off small. Like if you only got
Yes,
like a couple $1,000 to your name, you got to start with this after school program, and then you can
correct.
scale up. And then if
Absolutely.
people see you do the after school program, and we see you doing it well, and we
Mhm.
are can see the fruits, then we'll be more inclined to donate and to give you
Absolutely.
more wiggle room. But if you're talking about this grandiose thing, you got to
Mhm.
find the site, you got to find the state, you got to buy a whole big building. The building's dilapidated. Now you got to fix it up, and you're trying to like, bro. People's patience is very small when it comes to their money like that. You know what I'm saying?
This is
Even
very true.
though black people are prone to getting scammed like that. Let's call it what it is. You know, There's only some point like all of these promises are going to catch up with you.
Yeah.
You know,
And one of the
and
things
so go ahead.
I'm sorry, one of the things we tend to find, and Mr. K talks about this, right? We always have religious pimps, race
Shout out to
pimps,
Mr.
and of
K.
course, absolutely, and pimp Africanists, right? And I really appreciate Mr.
Mhm.
K being active on the channel. Is they tend to always promote this concept of the boogeyman, right? Umar is from Philadelphia. Shout out to the 215, the Illidale, right? Mr. Sandman is from Illidale. There are a number of African Center schools in Philadelphia. The Lotus Academy, right? The Imhotep Academy. There are a number of African Center schools in Philadelphia that are competent and actually are preparing young all Black children providing them an African Center education that puts them in a position to have a competitive advantage in civil society. Right? We're saying the same thing with Tariq Nasheed, who I think is a race pimp. He started talking
Yep.
about, family, we need to have our own museum. There's museums, but we don't have any independent museums. They're all owned by the state. Not true. That you have the Charles Wright African American Museum in Detroit that's independently owned. Right. So once again, it typically does the boogeyman. They're going to create a mythological problem. Right. And then say the solution is give me money to solve it.
Yeah.
That's the reality. That's why we use the analogy of the pimp. The pimp goes to the woman and says, "Listen, this is your problem. The solution is you go out here, put this work in, and then give your money to me."
Well, shit, that could be the pimp, the prostitute. I mean, the pimp, the preacher, or the politician, for that matter. But yeah, there's one thing I wanted to say, and I want to get off before I skip out. So, like back in my days when I was, wasn't as racially enlightened as I am now, my little right wing circles, there was a guy named, I think his name was Murray Rothbard or whatever. He wrote a book and he was talking about the problem with trying to start a movement that is considered fringe, and by fringe, not like crazy, but fringe, but being outside of the normal, what was considered normal, right? So, like during slavery, being an abolitionist would be considered fringe, right? So, the problem with like fringe movements that try to push the society towards a certain direction, you tend to attract fringe personalities, people who aren't quite wound right. You know what I'm saying? And that becomes an issue because like you need, for any movement, you need a critical mass of people, right? But if you're fringe, most people aren't going to roll with it. So, so who are you going to attract? The fringe personalities. But the problem is you need people in the pews. I mean, excuse me, you need people in the ranks, but then the type of people in the ranks that you get alienate the masses that you need. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so that becomes an issue with particularly any type of Pan-African movement, is that, you want a movement that is centering, Afro, Pan-African, working on the economic, social, political well-being of the African diaspora. But then you get people like Umar Johnson comes in there and he messes it all up and he alienates. Like now you see every channel or video, people dogging Umar, and then they're dogging Pan-Africanism along with it. So now Pan-Africanism is being dragged down by him, even though Pan-Africanism, completely, it predates, Umar by like 100 years. People who don't know any better are just going to, associate Pan-Africanism with Umar, and then just in their head, because most, obviously in America in general, people are just not going to look that deep unless, for anything, you know what I'm saying? It's like a sales, like sales. If I don't get you, and that, what to say, like in sales, your opening speech, that first 5 seconds buys you the next 10 seconds, that 10 seconds buys you the next, 30 seconds, that 30 seconds buys you the next, on and so on, right? So if their first introduction to Pan-Africanism is Umar Johnson, they're not going to look any further, right? But then if you
Absolutely.
have someone who is more articulate and more charismatic, say, Tariq Nasheed, and yeah, even though I think Yvette Carnell has her points, Yvette Carnell, you know what I'm saying? But she's definitely anti-African, anti-African diaspora, anti-Pan-Africanism. So I got my criticisms of her, you know. And so it becomes this double-edged sword of trying to get people in your ranks, but trying to get the right people. And, they can end up doing way more damage than they do good. And,
Absolutely.
and even, and my last point, like even with, this becomes an issue with, because with the thought leaders, the thought leaders of Pan African, because today we don't have a Dr. John Henry Clark, we don't have a Amos Wilson, we don't have we do have, but they're outnumbered. Like those charismatic, intellectuals, from the 20th
Yeah.
century.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys have passed on, and so so for our intellectuals that we do have, they may not have the, online personality. They just be, they may be in the books, they have it in their head, and then they, sometimes, some people may tend to be, relatively dry people. You know what I'm saying? So they're not
Mhm.
as charismatic. And so that opens up the door for someone like a Tariq Nasheed who could come in, crack jokes, get everyone riled up and rallying behind him. But he's empty on the inside. He's only doing it for himself. Whereas the person who is actually community minded, he may have difficulty getting his points across, or if he does get his points across, he's not funny. You know what I'm saying? And that's like that can be like the Achilles heel of many of our intellectuals. Like if you can't crack a joke, if you can't get the crowd laughing, then you end up just being just another pretentious, what's the word, like some pretentious author just thinks too highly of himself. And that's just like the
Right.
problem that any intellectual or mostly intellectual movement have, is getting the masses of the people to, one, understand it and then get behind it. And people like Umar just really messed that up because he talks a good game. You know what I'm saying? But then when you do stuff like this, you just muddy the water, because now no one wants to be associated with, now no one wants to say I'm Pan-African, because the first thing someone's going to say, oh, you were Dr. Umar, you know?
Absolutely.
And he just ruins everything, man. So he should be, I mean, I hope he does care. And if he does care, shame on him, because I hope he realizes how much damage he's done to a movement that could have ultimately saved all of us,
Right. Know
So I'll lay my
thyself.
plan there.
I see your comment. You said if Pan-Africanism has Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, you're speaking of Sahel Movement Alliance. Why would it need anyone else? It seems strong to me. Tap in, be part of the conversation. The link is in the description. Link is in the chat. Mr. K says, here's a joke about the Pan-African detractor. They forgive religion for the exposed religious pimps, but resent Pan-Africanism for the odd pimp Africanists. This is very true. Absolutely. And I actually went on the FBA website. And this FBA website was created by, of course, Tariq Nasheed. He talks about the fact that on the website, this is not an actual political organization or movement, it's simply a lineage. But everything on the website is, products he made that he's trying to sell. So as you can see, for him, it's back to just making money. So something to consider. Mr. Sandman, go right ahead. You've been waiting patiently.
Hey, how you doing? Happy Pan-African Sunday to you guys.
Happy Pan-African Sunday.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so I've been keeping track of Dr. Umar Johnson for a long time. Ever since I first heard about him about 10 to 15 years ago. And I heard him on the internet or the YouTube and on Facebook and other social media platforms talking about starting a school. And I thought there was going to be a lot of hiccups, or there's going to be a struggle to try to do what he was trying to do for a variety of reasons. But I was disappointed at the beginning, because it seemed like ever since the very beginning, I heard a bunch of people on social media platforms saying that he was a trickster or a hustler or a scammer prior to anything of a formality coming to fruition that he was claiming. But that just goes to show you exactly what the mindset of a lot of people are, or a lot of African Americans across the country believe in. And to LMA's point, if a person is disenfranchised or um, discouraged from getting into Pan-Africanism because of the appearance of what happened with Dr. Umar Johnson failing, then they weren't truly in it to begin with, because this struggle isn't for the weak minded.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I think a lot of times people become disenchanted, right? It's
Yeah,
the same as someone may go to church, right? And then they find themselves in a situation where, irrespective of what church they go to, they find people who are being hypocritical, who are backstabbing, who are being vile and mean spirited, and it causes a person to leave the church, right? So I agree with what you're saying, but I also think that there could be there's a space for people who are serious but simply are turned away by the infighting and say, you know what, I'm just gonna, remove myself from this and keep to myself. So I think that's something to consider. And Kevin, aka Mr. K, is your comment is LMA basically what's happened. We've gone from the charismatic anti-hero of the 90s and 2000s, and now have moved into the era of charismatic anti-intellectuals like we have Tariq. Mr. K, hey, I'm gonna push you, brother. I need you to tap in, be part of the conversation today. The link is in the description, link is in the chat. Family, if you're watching, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. Make sure you're blessed to the show. Hit that Cash App, hit, of course, Venmo, and, of course, the Super Chat. Go right ahead. So let me ask you this question, Mr. Sandman. You are from Philadelphia, correct?
yes, that's correct.
North Philadelphia?
Yes, I'm from North Philadelphia, the Ogon neighborhood. Are you
Okay.
familiar with that area? Yeah.
No, I'm not. Umar's from Philadelphia. He's from North Philadelphia. What is the view of Umar in the city of Philadelphia?
Oh, that's a good question. You know something? A lot of the people in Philadelphia that I speak with is mainly family members. They don't really speak about Dr. Umar at all,
Mm,
from my understanding. Most of them, I mean, he's mostly just a social media figure, you know.
mm.
And if you're not really into social media or into those Pan African topics, a lot of people
Okay.
aren't really going to pay attention to what he's talking about.
Right.
They struggle
Are you aware
with
of
life.
any work that he's doing in the city to help, of course, Black people, particularly Black children? Because his push is, of course, education.
No, I'm not aware of any of that. No. Mm-mm. I mean, when I
Oh,
go to the city, I go there like, fairly relatively like twice. I mean, I don't live far from the city. I'm only about 20 miles outside of the city, but whenever I have to travel into the city for a variety of reasons, whether it's to, hang out with family and friends or do business out there, I haven't seen any sign of his movements taking hold in the city in any particular mean, in any particular way. No.
okay.
Yeah. So but the what I've heard him say on social media platforms is particularly like the topic that you were talking about, how there are other African schools or African centered schools. His his rebuttal to that was those schools are chartered, meaning that they have to follow state and government and federal regulations in regards to teaching. And I think that's if you're really into academics, then you would know that. I think there's a truancy law, whereas though if you have your kid going
You're breaking up on
to
us
a
a little bit.
school that's not um,
Yeah, you're breaking up on us a little bit, Mr. Sandman.
can you hear me better now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah. I think it's this thing called truancy laws, whereas though if you have a child and they're not going to a federally or state regulated academic institution during their adolescent years, I believe it's in between the school age and up until 16 or 17 years old, that the parent of or the guardian of that child could you know get penalized legally for that.
Right.
So being that Dr. Umar Johnson was trying to open up a school that wasn't regulated by the government, he was going to be in the midst of an uphill battle from day one, because it just wouldn't work. How can you open up a school that isn't accredited by the state or the federal government, and
That's a great
have
point.
people take their kid to that school? It's like, that's not really a school. If anything, that's just a program.
Right.
You
That's a
know?
great point. Great point.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly everything that's going, and I'm not totally against, um, guys. We talk about this all the time about money leaving the community, and so I'm not against guys like a Dr. Umar Johnson, who provides a service for African Americans, whether it be just talking, or other things that he claims that he might be doing, and us as Black people paying them or giving them money or what have you to
Right.
for his services. So that's something that we need as a Black community. We need to learn how to do more often in general, not just when it comes to so-called social media figures or hustlers and scammers. We need to get back into that mindset of, hey, if you have a skill, and it you have a doctor's degree in psychology, or you have a gift of gab, or you have this ability to unite people, well, to motivate that person to do that more, and be more of an asset to the community, then you pay them, and then by paying them, you create friendships, you create alliances. So I mean, the love of money, they say, is evil, but if you use it properly, it can be used as a way of sharing with your fellow man, same way that our ancestors shared cowrie shells with each other whenever we did services for each other, or we shared gold, like Mansa Musa did with other groups of Africans. So there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, as a consumer, this is a free country. You don't have to pay for give Dr. Umar Johnson money to for his services. So if you choose to invest in that, and you think it'll be profitable for your business, or profitable, or it bring a benefit to whatever you're doing, then there's no problem with that. I don't see. But yeah, it's just I'm really disappointed in Dr. Umar, and then I wasn't really interested in too much of what he was talking about online. I was more interested in him at least opening up the doors as he claimed that he was going to do, and
Right.
he failed to do that. So I'm disappointed that he wasn't able to do that. So um, I don't think that it's going to be. It shouldn't be a negative. It could more positive that he's going to lose steam, or it appears that he's going to fall off. When it comes to popularity, but uh, I don't think it should be a positive or negative. For the in a broad sense of things. But hey, we'll see how it goes, and maybe him bringing more awareness to Pan-Africanism in general will help the next guy maybe do it the right way, where it'll be more profitable and positive for the community in general. So maybe it's just a butterfly effect, and we could take the next step from there. Sometimes it's just like Moses. He didn't make it he didn't make it to Israel, I believe, because he failed, but he started the movement. So that's the story in the Bible, and I think that's the story of life in general. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say about Dr. Umar. I guess if the next lady would like to speak, I'll just fall back for a little bit.
Sister Michelle, what's the word? Happy Garvey Day to you.
Thank you. Happy Garvey Day to you. Thank you, Dr. Bakari. Hello, Mr. Sandman. Thank you for having this balanced discussion on Dr. Umar and not making it sensational like other people have. I appreciate that. My concern with Dr. Umar is that I think he overplayed his hand.
Mm.
Um, And also he has a personality, a very strong personality, and trying to find that balance in this, because he's one of the first, from what I can think of, I'm thinking as I'm talking, that blew up online.
Okay.
He blew up online, speaking engagements, so on and so forth. You start seeing him around maybe 10, 15 years ago. And I guess he had that grandeur idea. I'm going to build a school, build a school, build a school. So, his popularity is garnering a lot of pressure, of course, because the things he's saying is controversial. So status quo is not liking it. So therefore, I think that also feeds into his personality. And then I think it just blew up. I think with Dr. Umar, I think he does love Black people unconditionally. I do think he is a Pan-Africanist. And I do think, overall, he wants the best for us. But he's a one. You can't do it as a one-man show.
Let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question. You said you believe he loves Black people unconditionally. Then why is it that we have hours of video of him speaking negatively in a very vile and negative manner about Black people? We saw the situation with Sarnetta. We see the situation.
But also Sarnetta was able to say some things back to him. So that's not fair. Because Sarnetta didn't go back and forth.
Hold on. But we're not talking about Sarnetta. We're talking about Umar Johnson. Particularly, I mean, the last situation you just had maybe a month ago with the sister where he was just speaking ill of her.
Yeah, that one wasn't a good look.
That's not representative of someone who loves Black people.
Yeah, that wasn't a good look. Yeah.
And he has a long history of that with the situation with the conscious stripper where he publicly was calling her a maggot.
Yeah, that was 10 years ago. And
I know. So what I'm saying is we see that there's a history of this type of behavior. Someone who loves Black people unconditionally does not go out on a public platform and speak ill of Black people in that manner.
Okay, but he didn't do it on like how should I say, more popular forums. He did it within.
That doesn't matter what the form is. You don't do that if you're someone who unconditionally.
But I think that was his mistake. I think as he blew up, he should have settled. And I think he would have avoided those type of situations with women if he was settled.
Well, would you have been willing to settle with Umar?
I don't think so. I like him as a personality online, just know him online, but I don't think so.
Okay, very good.
Then also another issue he needs to understand is, especially Black women born in the Western Hemisphere, he said he wants more than one wife. I think women on this side of the world will have a lot of trouble with that. Just being honest with that, because there's reasons why.
And do you think he's just bloviating? Is he saying these things just for, effect? Or do you think he actually means it?
I think he means it.
Okay.
And if he really wants to be in a situation where he has more than one wife, he may have to go to the continent, a place where it's practiced, so it's not unusual for the person. It's not hard for them to accept. Where in the Western Hemisphere, due to socioeconomics and other systems, it's not very viable. And I'll leave it there. Again, I think he filled a gap in for a lot of people, because I work in human services, because he did speak on the prison line. He did speak to the challenges of accessing services and resources in the school system and in the community. So that's what drew me to him.
Right, because your background is in social work, correct?
Yeah, so that's why I was drawn to him, because he did speak truth to power in terms of.
He made a lot of claims that we knew were factual.
But he did it on a forum that was, no one has been able to speak on it on that forum and reach that level of people. Now people can hear us. Like, again, I've been in situations where we want to do things specifically for Black people. And of course, other Black people have come in and be like, no, you can't do that. They put you in the office. But he put it on his forum. These are challenges Black people are having, just trying to service other Black people. So that's what drew me to him, because he put our people in my background in those circumstances to the forefront. And you got millions of people listening to it. Millions of people listening to it. So now I also think the status quo got kind of nervous with him, because he's saying things that are uncomfortable for them. Celebrities, calling out celebrities. So again, he was more of an entertainer. I think he should have just ran as a podcaster. I do think if he really wanted to help Black people, he didn't have to necessarily build a school. He could have still done it in another way. But my concern now is the loss of the building, because the money that was raised by Black people. So we're going to allow him to lose the building so it can go back into white people's hands, because we as a community have a personal problem with him. And that's what our biggest question, because he came to rise because he filled a gap somewhere in the community. That's why people were listening to him. And nobody wants to accept that responsibility. He said he was saying something that captivated people. And now y'all want to call him a scammer?
Well, I think when you look at it, well, he's raised.
But let me tell you something. On most major cities with Black people, there's about 10 or 5 preachers who are all scamming. So I don't see y'all calling him out.
Well, actually, we do. At least on my platform, we call these individuals out. But
but you don't have. I'm looking at your history. I don't see you have Reverend Pastor such and such. We're going to talk about him today, but you have a few on Dr. Umar.
Well, actually, yes, I have. I did a show when I first moved out here on the guy who told people close the doors you got to give some money, close the doors. I just did a show on him. Yeah, when I first moved out here back in April. And we have a whole series where we critique Abrahamic religions. On my platform, we have an entire series on the adverse effect Black people's adherence to Abrahamic religions have on us from a social, political, historical, and economic frame of reference. I've done several shows. In fact, I will pull up the playlist. Okay, so on my platform, I do that, right? I am consistent around the board. I've always stated that the enemies of African people are internal as well as external. So give me 1 second and I will pull up the playlist and I will share my screen to do so. All right, very good. All right. Okay, bow. Okay, let me go back. All right, because I don't mind the challenge, right? But I want to make sure I'm consistent in showing that I am consistent in terms of addressing issues internally and externally in our community. So yes, I'm going to share my screen right now. Give me 1 second. Bow. So as you can see here, this right here, it says Abrahamic religions, right? Let's see here. We're going to open this up. And this series, oh no, you can't see it yet. I'm sorry. Okay. You should be able to see it right now. Abrahamic religion. This series interrogates the antagonistic relationship Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam have with African people. There are a number of videos on this playlist. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 videos I've done on this topic. The latest was April 13th, 2025, where we looked at Marvin Sapp. And it says Marvin Sapp and why the Black community should divorce itself from organized religion, part 1 and 2. Right, so I did a 2-part series on Marvin Sapp. So as I said before, on my platform, I am consistent across the board, irrespective of who the person is. If I believe the individual or entity or program or organization is causing harm to the Black community.
Okay, I understand. Thank you for clarifying that.
No problem. But I don't mind you, and I don't mind you making that challenge. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. So Dr. Umar, he's part of pop culture. He will remain part of pop culture, but I think there will be a decline. I also think he also rubbed people the wrong way, especially celebrities. Mm-hmm. So again, I hope that someone of Black is able to, once this auction is able to buy the building, because it was Black people's money that bought the building. So it doesn't fall into another community's hands. And I think that's where we should be thinking as people at this point. And maybe we'll have to put Dr. Umar aside and let's save the building for ourselves, because it was Black people's money who bought the building.
Oh, and one of the issues people had with him being a scammer was he came out and stated what? And here we go. Michelle, just to let you know, Lumumba did a reaction video called out 19 Keys, who told revisionist history painting Pan-Africanism as the boogeyman. Yes, so I'm consistent across the board. Mm-hmm. I don't care what the person's ideology, religion, political views. If you make claims that are averse to facts, I will call you out on my platform. This is what I do. And I don't just call people out. I emailed 19 Keys, spoke to his manager via email and said, listen, bring his monkey ass on my goddamn show, and I'm going to light his ass up like the 4th of July. Mm-hmm. I'm consistent across the board. When I critique Umar Johnson before, I called him, I emailed him, I texted him and said, hey, pull up. No response. right? So I'm consistent across the board. When I critique FBA, Afro Elite came on my platform back in 2022, spewing that nonsense, right? I'm consistent across the board, irrespective of who the individual is. So I just want to put that out there. But the issue was he stated that what? He stated that his bank account was frozen. And then in the same video said that the bank said there was no record of the account. Those two things can't be true at the same time. Either your account is frozen or there's no record of your account. If there's no record of your account, how could the account be frozen? Right? So we see the double talking that's going on here. He's double talking in line. Right? There was a video where he said that all of the renovations of the school had been made.
Okay.
There was a group of people, okay, journalists who went into the school and showed that no renovations have been made in the school.
But he also just came back from a debate. I mean, at this point, you know, his character's in question.
You can't overtalk me.
Okay.
Let me finish. Then there was an issue where he stated that someone broke into the school, and I would answer your question in a second, Mr. K. Where he said someone broke into the school and the electricity was out. But then he stated that we have video of the people breaking in. Where there's no electricity, how do you have video of people breaking in via the surveillance cameras? So we see there's a lot of double talking here. This is why people are calling this man a scammer.
Okay.
So, go right here, sister.
If we put all this aside, my concern right now is the building. It was Black people's money who bought the building. Do we have somebody in our community that we could rally around to buy that building and take it off his hands?
I don't know if he actually owns the building, because from what I've seen, people are just going into the building whenever they feel like it. There's no locks on the doors or anything.
So then the question becomes, who owns the building? Number one.
Right.
And do we, as a people, now we have him as a scammer? Fine, fair enough. What can we do as a Black people to save that building? Because because I invested in Jay Morrison's Tulsa real estate fund. At least with his building, he was able to at least sell it to another Black person. Okay. To at least keep it in the community's hands at some level. So at this point, what can we do as damage control as a community? Because that is a building, and property is very valuable, especially in the Western Hemisphere. So are we going to continue just calling him scammer when we have a property? Let's open the curtains. There's property that we can lose, as we can either keep as a community or just be so focused on Dr. Umar that we lose everything. So that's where I'm at. You know, right. People have made their point about him, but at the point,
there's a couple things, right? One, people need to find out who actually owns the property, what is the cost to purchase the property, and then you have to actually have, as I would like to say, a war chest that will allow people to maintain the property. Right? Those are real questions, right? Yeah. Curious question, Lumumba, do you have a background in entrepreneurship, entrepreneurialism at all? I would say nominal. I used to be an amateur calendar maker. I made Black History calendars at one point, and I did okay. I mean, I would go to different events during the end of the year, Kwanzaa celebration, sell my calendars, and I would be able to make a profit, but not in a serious manner where I was able to actually make my entire income or living was based off being an entrepreneur. And see, snapshot reviews. I heard on another platform that the school is sitting on contaminated land, so it might not be worth investing. The questions are, was Umar? Let's see here. Was Dr. Umar's business plan? I don't think he ever had one. Let's see here. I asked that question because if you know, maybe your entrepreneurialism background and knowledge expertise could be the damage control solution that the sister's mentioning, possibly. The Saint channel has made Umar Johnson an offer of $40,000 for one of the buildings. We'll see if he takes it. Don't know. Christine Williams, hopefully you could tap in. Once again, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in and be part of the conversation. But I think the real issue is we don't even know if he's actually owned the building. As I said before, there have been a number of videos online of people just showing up to the school and just walking in and taking the tour, right? And videoing. So there's no locks on the doors. People just walking in. So I don't know if he's actually raised the money or if he's does actually own the buildings. But we do know is that based on some people's numbers, he's raised nearly almost $2 million. Right.
So for me at this point is more about, again, damage control at this point. People have proved, he needs a character question. Again, I just wanted to see how we can save the property if possible. And I'll probably look at Saint Channel has made it, it was the Saint Channel, to see how we can, as a community, come together and just buy the buildings and see how we can best move forward. Again, we can't throw the, we got to put Dr. Umar aside and focus on the property again, because we as Black people are losing property, like left and right. Church property, home property, business property, and just see how we can come together and also address our needs as a people, as a community. There was a need. Dr. Umar filled in a gap in the community. That's why he was able to rise to popularity. So how do we do that so it doesn't happen again? So that's where I'm at.
Well, what gap did he fill?
He was speaking to women, hey, your son's in school, you need help, issues with the school system, IEPs, those various challenges. He spoke to those issues, he spoke to those needs, and that's how he gained popularity. So what we need to do is, okay, there is a need in our community for support for children in the school systems that the main school system is not really getting. So how do we implement those things? I don't have no issue. I have no entrepreneurial background at all. Mr. Kevin AK, Mr. K.
Yeah, I said, but the major issue is going to come down to capital. And that is, you have to have the capital to purchase the building. You have to have the capital to maintain the property. That means covering what the bills that come and maintain the property, if that's electric, if that's water, if that's gas, but also being able to maintain the property. That means when you own a property or a home, you're responsible for the upkeep. If the roof caves in, you got to pay to get that fixed, right? So that's the issue. What it's going to come down to is there an entity or organization that has the capacity and the capital to purchase and maintain the property? Because if you can't maintain the property, it will be considered a nuisance. No one will be able to inhabit the institution. You won't be able to occupy the building, and then the building will go back to being owned by the municipality or state.
One person said that is a damage control for what? Dr. Umar, the school, or for Pan-Africanism? For me right now, it was the property of the building right now, so we don't lose it from our community. Dr. Umar will have to be set aside, and I think we as a collective may have to, look at how to best handle him. And also Pan-African, I think, needs to do Pan-African 2.0 to see how we can move it forward for the next generation so it can be sustained, because it's taken a lot. That's just my
If you don't mind, I'd like to add something. Yeah, so in the state of Delaware, which is right in the Philadelphia area, they call it the Delaware Valley, as a matter of fact, Philadelphia. Delaware is one of those states that doesn't have property, doesn't have taxes, doesn't have state taxes or sales tax or income taxes. So I'm thinking what Dr. Umar was thinking was I'll purchase a plot of land or I'll purchase a building, some real estate in Delaware, whereas though I won't have to pay any taxes on the building, and I can get it, as is, whatever price that was getting sold at. But I think there's like a very large property tax, something. I mean, really not large. I mean, very low property tax for if you own the building in the state of Delaware. I believe it's like 0.5% of the value of the property annually, which I don't know how much he purchased the property for, but if he owned if the property was valuated at, let's say, $1 million or whatever, he purchased the building for, then 0.5% of that, or 1% of $1 million is what, $10,000 or something, $10,000, so, or half of that. So then they had to pay like $5,000 annually to keep up with the taxes. So I don't know. I don't really understand why his so-called funds got frozen. Normally, that's a tax issue that comes from the government. Like if he owes taxes for something, but if he's getting all of his money from donations, then that's supposed to be a tax exempt. So I don't know exactly what's going on with the guy. Maybe if he's doing like appearances on people's show where he's getting paid, and those are not considered donations, then he could owe taxes on that. That's why they froze his bank account. I don't know.
Well, like I said, he stated that the bank also had no record of his account, so we know that he's lying. Right.
Oh, okay.
American intelligentsia, Pan-Africanism is a complete joke anyway. We so-called Black Americans didn't come from Africa at all. Well, we know that is opposed to facts. African Americans are descendants of enslaved Africans and their descendants. But you are welcome to come on. The link's in the description, and you can share with us why you believe Pan-Africanism is a joke. So the link is in the description. I will put the link in the chat once again, and of course, you can tap in and be part of the conversation. Once again, we see here snapshot. You say, why do you think it's taking this long for Dr. Umar to be exposed? But there's a couple of issues. One, when a Black person comes out and they're speaking truth to power, right? When they're pushing a Black agenda, Black power agenda, Black radical tradition of audacious self-assertion, there is a push for Black people to want to support that person. And so that when oftentimes it comes out that if people are critiquing them, there's a belief that, hey, maybe, just maybe, what's taking place is people are trying to attack the person because they're pushing a Black agenda, right? We oftentimes in our community are willing to give Black people the benefit of the doubt, right? The issue was, I think, that he was aware of that and he used that to his advantage and benefit to actually be this pseudo leader that he claimed to be for as long as he has. So I think, in my opinion, that's the issue. Sister Christine states, this is not the first time Umar has gotten behind on taxes and building, but he has been able to maintain it until now. Umar Johnson has been contacted with the city of Wilmington, Delaware, over and over. So once again, American intelligentsia, he's promoting this concept and idea that African Americans are indigenous to America and her islands. We know that is a historical claim, and of course adverse to facts. But this is an example of course, self-hatred and Afrophobia, and one seeks to engage in what's known as self-abnegation, distancing oneself from one's African history and heritage, in a belief that would somehow empower them, and of course allow them to escape the vicissitudes of anti-Black racism here in the good old US of A, and of course the Western world and globally as well. So once again, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, family, and be part of the conversation. Well, once again, the American intelligentsia, that is not the case. There is ample evidence that the term African American has been in use since the 1700s, right? We find New York Times articles, right, stating using the term African American. Even T. Thomas Fortune, along with T. Thomas Fortune, created in 1890 the Afro-American Organization, along with John Edward Bruce. Right. So the claim that you've made, of course, is adverse to facts. And you're speaking to someone who is an historian and a former professor of African American history. The term African American has been in the use since the 1700s. But once again, you're more than welcome to tap in and be part of the conversation. Umar Johnson allowed his tax exemption to lapse. Umar has no business still collecting money. That's probably why his accounts are frozen. Umar has no business since. I would agree with that. Yes. And so I think, yes, you do have to continuously update your tax exemption status, and it appears that he did not. I think did see a video where he stated that the issue was he filed for some type of continuance or exception, and it doesn't seem like it was granted. So once again, that is on him, and that's why it's important that when you're doing work for the community, you have a competent team around you, not just an individual person, right, but a competent team, just like in a boxer. Right, when the fight is over, they thank their nutritionist, their trainer, their strength and conditioning coach, their sparring partners, the gym that they use. Right, you need to have a competent team around you if you're going to do work to create programs, initiatives, and of course institutions that tangibly benefit the African American and of course global Black community. That is extremely important. But once again, the link is in the description. Christine, American Intelligentsia, tap in, be part of the conversation. As you know, the ground rules here at Lumumba Speaks is very simple and Big Line Network. We believe in diversity of thought. Irrespective if you're on the right, you're on the left, or you're right down the middle, you could come here and be part of the conversation. No epithets of any kind are allowed. We don't allow racial epithets. We don't allow epithets of any kind. This is a space of Black empowerment. We believe in the 3 N's of Black power, which are self-respect, self-defense, and of course, self-determination. We believe in what facts over feelings. If you disagree with someone, you attack the argument, not the person. We don't do ad hominems. We don't do red herrings. This is an intellectually centered conversation. Then last but not least, you are entitled. Keyword, you are entitled to your own opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts. As everyone knows, I am a scholar. I am an actual PhD. I work at an institution of higher education. And this is, of course, my platform, and my reputation is on the line. So I do not allow anyone to make a claim that is adverse to facts without correcting them. For example, you can be of the prevaricating opinion that LeBron James is the greatest basketball player ever. However, if you were to make a claim that is adverse to facts, if you were to make a claim that Michael Jordan only won 2 championships, that is something I would have to stop you and say that is incorrect. So once again, tap in, be part of the conversation. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Mr. Sandman has been doing. How long have we been doing this, Mr. Sandman?
What? Just the show?
Yes, sir. How long have you been tapping
What
in?
do you say? What do you mean? How long have we been doing it?
How long have you been tapping in?
I've been tapping in, I guess, about a year. So
okay. So, and I say that I asked that question so you can speak.
Yeah, I've been tapping in for about a year. So I think.
Yes. So the ground rules that I have on my platform are for everyone. For everyone. Right.
Yes.
So tap in, be part of the convo. But once again, American intelligentsia, I appreciate you tapping in. But the claim that you've made that the term African American was invented in 1988 is adverse to facts. There's a long history of the term being used going all the way back to the 1700s. And of course, as I stated before, T. Thomas Fortune, along with John Edward Bruce, both who were Pan-Africanists, they created in 1890 the Afro-American Organization, which was, of course, the precursor to the NAACP. So appreciate you tapping in, brother, but that claim, of course, is ahistorical and adverse to facts. But once again, you'll tap in and be part of the conversation.
Yeah, and the reason why I've been tapping in for so long is because you're genuine about, your belief system, no ad hominems, no playing games, no getting online, playing like we're in the WWE and faking like we hate each other just for clicks and views, I'm too old for that, and I don't need the stress of having to get online and argue with grown men or grown women about frivolous stuff, and you're keeping it straight to the point and intellectual. So that's why I prefer to listen to your show in general when it comes to Pan-Africanism.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that because I do know that most people build their platforms by attacking other people. That's just the reality, right? That's how people build their platforms. That's not something I'm into. It's not something I'm engaged in. I prefer to have what some people call character and, of course, being principled, right? And that's just not what I'm about, right? We live in a society in which you can argue it is on a it is anti-Black racism is ubiquitous. We know this. And so as a result, we're getting hit from all sides, right? So my goal is not to attack another Black person. Now, if you are engaging in behavior that I believe, why to Dome, I appreciate you, brother. Hopefully you can tap in. And if you're engaging in behavior that, of course, is adverse to our community, we need to call that out because our enemies are internal as well as external. But I'm not going to build a platform in any way, shape, or form that's rooted on challenging, calling out, or trying to degrade or attacking other Black people. That's just not what I'm into in any way, shape, or form. And I think that you're right. We find this in the social media spaces, even on Twitter now, where a lot of these conversations devolve. They don't evolve, they devolve into, of course, race baiting, name calling. They MF, I would beat your A. I've seen these things, and of course, I leave because that's not the type of environment I need to be in. But once again, I think part of the issue with social media and why it's a Dome TV, but Raheem Shabazz, I hope you could tap in and be part of the combo, is what social media has done is caused a lot of individuals who really are neophytes to tap in and engage as cosplay as political analysts and political scientists when they actually aren't. Right, to cosplay as intellectuals and historians when they actually aren't. Right, and the greatest example of that was, of course, my reaction video I did with 19 Keys. Right, and so that is one of the adverse effects of social media, where anyone could tap in, get online, and then start to promote themselves as someone who has deep knowledge in a particular field of endeavor when actually they don't. I had a conversation yesterday with a good brother of mine, Brother Kenneth Clemens. And he talked about how he works in the financial industry. He says he loves there's a YouTube channel, Pocket Watching with JT. This brother's an actual certified public accountant, a CPA, and he talks about how a lot of people are creating platforms about, fix your credit, how to make money, and what they really are teaching people how to do is to engage in bank fraud, right? And so this is why I think it's important that you actually have conversations with individuals that have either done a copious amount of research or are a actual professional in a particular field of endeavor or industry. So that's just my position, because we know there's a lot of misinformation out there regarding not only African American history and culture, but just life in general. So once again, family, the link is in the description, links in the chat. Tap in. We're discussing here on LumumbaSpeaks.com at Black Empowerment Initiative, where we believe you could gain a competitive advantage by always being in Black, in conjunction, of course, with Equaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African Center News and Information. We're discussing what does the fall of Dr. Umar Johnson mean for Pan-Africanism. So now let's pivot. We've finished talking about Umar Johnson, Dr. Umar Ifantunde, but just have a conversation about, of course, Pan-Africanism. What that looks like, what should be the focus moving forward. We know there have been some wins lately on the deck for Pan-Africanism, particularly we talk about the Sahel Alliance. I can argue, share with you all that here on my job, we've actually borrowed from the Sahel Alliance and created a Sahel Alliance here at CSU Sacramento, where we are actually creating an initiative where we're working with not only the Black Honors College, but also the Pan-African Studies program, and of course the MLK Center. We have, of course, a Sahel Alliance, where we're going to be having one class a semester taught here at the MLK Center. So we just making sure we're working together on campus, all of the Black programs, and of course, Black programs and course institutions. So Defender of Logic, hopefully you could tap in and be part of the conversation. I know you sent me a message before. You complained about the fact that oftentimes you don't get the notifications. I don't know why that's the case. Even one of my cousins shared that he subscribed to the channel, and sometimes he doesn't receive the notification reminders. I don't know if it's because of the type of content that I make, but that is an issue. I contacted YouTube about it. They said they had no record of that being an issue, but I do apologize, but I hope you could tap in and be part of the conversation. Lumumba, if you have any close friends with background in entrepreneurialism, maybe you can make inquiries with them for damage control to the building that Michelle talked about. That is possible. There's an elder that I know who's an entrepreneur, Willis Bing Davis. He, of course, is a educator. He's also a world-renowned artist. He opened his own art gallery, of course, in West Dayton. Ebonier Art Gallery is on, of course, I think 1123 West 3rd Street in of course, the Gem City, Dayton, Ohio. So I maybe can make an inquiry to him, but I do know that it isn't just him running the shop. Of course, the gallery, he has a team around him. But Defender of Logic, hopefully you could tap in. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Any other thoughts, Mr. Sandman? But yeah, I would argue, focus. Go right ahead.
Yeah, the only thought that I was trying to get out earlier was about the guy, I believe his name was Genius something, in regards to us being native to the Americas. I don't know if I've done a little bit of research of that, and they say that anthropologists are saying that the first white skin first got brought to the world about 8,000 to 9,000 years ago, and prior to that, all human beings on the planet Earth were of darker or brown skin hue. So, with that being this case, and anthropologists predicting that the first humans traveled to the Americas about 11 to 12,000 years ago, then theoretically, I guess those natives that came across the Bering Strait or even across the Pacific Ocean were of brown or copper skinned. However, they have this thing called haplogroups, whereas though you can do a genealogy research onto your bloodline, and it'll tell you whether or not you're of that group of natives who first migrated to the Americas, or whether or not your haplogroup is with West African or Central African or even East African descent. So genetic scientists or DNA science has gotten to the point where we know exactly where you're from or where your bloodline derives from based on haplogroup. So there's a distinct haplogroup that the Native Americans who came over here first, who happened to be or probably were of darker hue, closer
Well,
to.
real quick, Mr. Sandman, respectfully, that's immaterial to the conversation today.
Yeah, I said that guy had brought up something about us being Native Americans or the blacks.
Right.
There was
Well,
already black people.
all that is individuals trying to distance themselves and deny their African heritage. That's all that is. There's no scientific basis for it at all. It's the same as black people saying that they're Native Americans, they're Hebrews. It's about being anything other than African. That's all that is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why I said I dismissed that. That's rooted in, of course, self-hatred and Afrophobia. That's all that is.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Real quick, let me read this comment. It's a shame Umar is going out like this. I just don't like that a lot of these PSYOP channels are running with this Umar situation, trying to give Pan-Africanism a black eye. What do you mean by PSYOPs? But those same channels will never talk about the progression we are making with the Sahel states. And this is true. But once again, a lot of these channels, the focus is to manipulate, right? And when you manipulate is when you provide partial information, not total information, and let a person make a decision on their own, right? For example, this happens a lot in church. When you go to church, you're provided either pseudo history or a very skewed perspective of history, right? And they would tell you, don't go out and read or learn anything else because it would confuse you, because you will realize you're being manipulated. So the same thing is happening on a lot of these channels. Richard Dixon, hopefully you could tap in, be part of the convo. Defend your logic. Can't make them live at the moment in the meeting. So I'll be in the chat. Appreciate that 100%. So that's the issue though, right? It's just all manipulation. But once again, all that is rooted in simply trying to distance oneself from one's African history and heritage because they have a negative view of what it means to be African, right? That's the reality. We know that is a derivative of the fact of what the negative indoctrination that we received during and after the Holocaust of enslavement, in which we were taught that our enslavement in Americas was deliverance from living a vile and primitive life in Africa. That's all that is. And these are individuals who have internalized that and are seeking to distance themselves from their African history, heritage, and culture because they believe that being African is a pejorative term. It is a negative. That's all.
Yep, that's absolutely true. And I'm not a psychologist or anything, and I can't say that I can read another man's or woman's brain when it comes to this stuff. But that appears, but that's the psychosis that a lot of African Americans.
Yeah, because our people our people will arbitrarily assign themselves a new identity, right? They will wake up one day and say, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. They will wake up one day and say, I'm Arab. They will wake up one day and say, I'm a Moor. They will wake up one day and say, I'm a Native American. Arbitrarily, right? They haven't done any scientific research and said, let me go trace my lineage or let me go. A matter of fact, being from the great state of Ohio, in the city of Cincinnati, they had an Underground Railroad Museum. At the top floor is a genealogy center where they actually help you trace your lineage. You think anybody's going to do that? You think anyone's going to do a DNA test and say, hey, let me use Ancestry.com or 23andMe and find out where I come from? No, because then they will find out, hey, I'm not a Native American, right? I'm not I'm not an Arab. I'm not, a Hebrew Israelite, so on and so forth. So it's arbitrarily assigning oneself a new identity because they view being Black or of African descent as a negative. Like the brother said, he made a claim that the term African American was created in 1988. That is ahistorical, adverse to facts. And you see, as I made that claim, he didn't comment anymore because this isn't a channel where it's being ran by someone who's a pseudo intellectual. I'm an actual intellectual. I'm an actual scholar, and I'm actually well versed in. I have a working knowledge of African and African American history. So those type of individuals typically leave a space or a platform when they know they're going to be challenged intellectually by someone that they believe is their equal or superior. That's the reality of the situation. If you agree with that, family, put a 1 in the chat. If you disagree, put it in 2. Jing says, John, maybe Jing, John. Umar is just a goofy gimmick cosplaying as Pan-African. Those who are skeptical about Pan-Africans have always been on the fence in the first place. I would agree. I would agree with you as well. I think Umar cosplays Pan-Africanism. I've stated this since, matter of fact, one of my homeboys last night said, you've been saying this since 2017, that he's cosplaying Pan-Africanism. He's promoting Pan-Africanism for his own personal brand. Yes, caught up identity based on a desire for escapism. Absolutely. And I say this, my brother is one of those fools who's a Hebrew Israelite. And he called me one day, wanted to have a conversation about history. And I said, you do know I teach African-American history for a living at actual college. And then he just shut up. I said, did you know who you're talking to? Right? I said, this isn't liquor stores. I don't engage in liquor store scholarship. And he shut the French toast up. So that's typically what happens. These are individuals who are undereducated, I would say, who lack an actual thorough knowledge of African-American history, who tend to not even understand how to do adequate research. I can recall my previous place of employment, I was working with a brother who was like, I think we're actually Native Americans, and the slave trade happened in reverse, and I just love history. And I said, well, brother, that isn't history at all, right? The slave trade didn't happen in reverse, right? But once again, a lack of actual formal education, being taught history, being taught how to actually identify credible sources versus uncredible sources. These individuals aren't taught that. I could call our resident historian here at, of course, Lumumba Speaks and Be Quiet Network, Dwayne Omawale, having an exchange with brothers online and talking about the difference between what primary sources and secondary sources in history. Had no idea what he was talking about. They had no knowledge of what a primary source was. They had no knowledge of what a secondary source was. So these aren't individuals who are actually intellectually curious. These aren't individuals who have actually been taught how to do actual historical research. They simply are individuals who are in an echo chamber of liquor store, of course, knowledge, right? And then as a result, they use that to, of course, promote concepts and ideas that typically are rooted in, as Mr. K stated, escapism.
Yeah, it's fascinating the way humans can be so easily manipulated. You can show them data after data of repeatability of a particular analysis or research, and they just don't understand that concept. You can even give them a number, something like 1,000,001 a chance of you being of this haplogroup based on another haplogroup, or you not being a part of the African this lineage haplogroup, and they just won't understand it. But something that touches their emotional chords, that's something that they'll align with. Something that it's just amazing how human beings don't really understand science in that fashion. They don't really register or believe in certain things unless it touches another sensory aspect of themselves, as opposed to just data.
Yeah. A lot of times, I would agree with you, Mr. K. Part of it is barbershop scholarship as well. Absolutely. When you go to the barbershop, I recall I went to a barbershop out here, and the brothers were like just making claims that were nonsensical. And I just said, listen, that's not the case. Da 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 da. Boom, 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 and everyone got quiet. So oftentimes it's just an echo chamber of ignorance. Yes, I saw your previous comment. Absolutely. But yeah, oftentimes it's simply an echo chamber of ignorance. No one actually is a subject matter expert or have a working knowledge of the topic that's being discussed. And so as a result, you're able to present misinformation, and people accept it as fact. One of the greatest examples that we find of that being done on a diurnal basis in the Nation of Islam. If you go to a Nation of Islam meeting, they make a number of claims that are ahistorical and adverse to facts. But once again, most of the individuals that frequent Nation of Islam meetings and are joining aren't individuals who have a competent amount of formal education. Most have not attended higher education. If they did, they typically did not major in a social science or liberal art, right? And so as a result, they go in. Most Black people aren't knowledgeable of their history, right? And so they're able to tell them anything that sounds or feels good, and they accept it as fact. So these are the type of things that take place. And many would argue, they're trying to help. I argue that's not helping the Black community. You're simply seeking to manipulate the Black community, right? If you're going to help the Black community, you provide factual information that is verifiable and able to be substantiated. That is my position, and I'm consistent in that, consistent across the board. So once again, family, tap in. We're discussing now, of course, what is the next step for Pan-Africanism. I'll argue, of course, building actual competent programs, initiatives, and institutions. If you do not have the resources or capital to build an actual brick and mortar institution, you could, at the very least, create a program or initiative. That program or initiative could be a Saturday school, a Juma Moshi Shule. It could be a back to school giveaway where you're giving out backpacks and school supplies, right? It could be free haircuts, but doing something. It could be professional development workshops on the weekend, but doing something that would actually provide a tangible benefit to help improve people's material conditions here in the deaf, deafness, and dysphoria, of course, not only the Western world, but the global African community as well. So once again, family, the links in the description, the links in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. You're watching, of course, LumumbaSpeaks.com and Black Empowerment Initiative, where we believe we can gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, in conjunction with Beacon Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African-centered news and information. Make sure that you are a blessing to the show, right? Make sure you hit the Cash App at, of course, Lumumba Speaks, Venmo at Lumumba, and of course, make sure you hit the Super Chat as well. So once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. We would love to hear from you as we begin to wrap up, right, our convo regarding, of course, the fall of Umar Johnson and what it means for Pan-Africanism. So once again, family, tap in. The links in the description, links in the chat. Snapshot reviews, I would love to hear from you. John, I would love to hear from you. Richard Dixon, would love to hear from you as well. Why is it Dome TV? You know, you got to pull up, brother. We got to keep it. We got to reciprocate. Tap in, be part of the conversation. If you're watching on Twitter as well, of course, you could tap in here on YouTube at Lumumba Speaks, and of course, the Beacon Network. Want to hear from you as well. But once again, having integrity is extremely important, and I think this really is a sign to everyone, right? A message to everyone that if you're going to do any type of work, you must have a competent team around you. And to have a competent team means that you do not engage in likership. You have to engage in leadership, meaning you typically should not work with people who are your friends, right? You shouldn't. You need to work with people who are competent professionals in whatever field of endeavor that you're seeking to engage in. So if you are looking to engage in an educational apparatus, but for Black children, you need to work with people who are actual educators, who have backgrounds in curriculum development, classroom management, right? These are skills that you need people to have. You can't work with your friends. If you want to create some type of financial institution, you need to work with people who have a background in education and in banking. When I say background, I mean that this person has a career in that particular field, not someone who's theorizing on social media, right? These things are important if we want to actually create programs and initiatives and institutions that actually materially benefit our people. Mr. K, I think we also need more active Pan-African journalism channels, where journalists doing active investigative journalism, giving publicity for the real deal Pan-Africanists doing work. Absolutely. I think that that's true as well. Yes.
And I think that we need to start getting focused. Anytime that you're building a business or institution, it takes a tremendous amount of focus and effort to get this machine rolling and making it work, you know, in a substantial way. You can't be a part-time Pan-Africanist if you're or a part-time building a school. This has to be something that takes up the majority of your waking day, where you're focusing your time and your effort to build something. So if you find yourself spending a lot of time wasting your time watching television or drinking and smoking or running the streets with your buddies or what have you, this probably isn't for you. You're not going to last very long. This is for winners, people that, you know, start things, they finish things, and they get stuff done, and they're uber focused on making it work.
You know, but I will push back. I don't think this should be a person's day job. And the reason why is because when individuals make whatever initiative they're trying to create their day job, they tend to engage in survivalism, in which that initiative or program is now the way that they're seeking to sustain and support themselves, their livelihood. So I would disagree with that. I think a person needs to have a actual career or an independent way that they're able to sustain and support themselves and they're doing this work because they have a love for their people.
Well, yeah, I agree with that, but the person who's the leader of the initiative, that needs to be his focus, his or her focus, 24/7. And the people that add to it, whether it be through donations or activism on the side, then they can do that part-time. But the person who's leading this charge, or the persons that's leading this charge, these institutions and organizations, they have to be 100% focused on it, in my opinion.
I hear you. I think we have to agree to disagree there. But once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. We'd love to hear from you all before we close out. What is the next step for Pan-Africanism? I would argue, once again, is to build programs, initiatives, and institutions that tangibly benefit the Black community, particularly materially, and of course, to do the work. I think that's what's most important as well. You have to do the work. Do the work, be committed to the work, and not be committed to, of course, self-aggrandizement, where you're seeking to promote yourself rather than doing the work to the benefit of our people. So, no African history and creating pipeline. So, once again, family, if no one else is going to tap in, we're going to close out. I give you all just a little bit more time, but definitely tap in, be part of the conversation. You do not have to come up to be part of the conversation, and you do not, keyword, you do not have to use your actual name. You can use a pseudonym to protect your identity. So, tap in, family, be part of the convo. If not, we will close out until next time. So, I'll give you all a second. And if I don't hear from you all, then of course we will close out. But once again, family, tap in, be part of the convo here at, of course, LumubaSpeaks.com, a Black Empowerment Initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. Until next time, family, y'all know what to do. Peace. Before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you for supporting the channel. And remember, here at Lumumba Speaks, we always bet on Black. Peace.